Hi, Rooted Bible Study Methods class folks. This is Jamie, and this is the week 3 walkthrough. So, walking through with you some of the things we're talking about in week 3 of our class. And on week 3, we're talking and starting sort of the basic Bible study method, which many of you will be familiar with, but it's just sort of basic method where you're looking at the context of a passage and then you're looking at observation, interpretation, and application. And in week 3, we're actually just going to do half of that. We're going to look at context, how to discover context about a passage, and then the observation piece. And then next week, in week 4, we will look at interpretation and application in this method, the basic Bible study method. So week 3, we're looking at context, and I brought up 3 contexts that it's important for us to have in mind when we're studying the scripture. The first context is context, and then the third is social context. And honestly, if one of those 3 are missing, is when we get into trouble when we're trying to understand what the Bible is saying. In fact, most times when you come to a passage and you don't understand what it means, or you're interpreting it poorly, or you're struggling with that passage, most likely you are not understanding either the historical context, the literary context, or the social context. So let's talk about these 3. First, I'm going to, you notice the dashboard here. I'm going to come over to the layouts icon on the side here. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to, you notice Logos has got some quick start layouts. So if you just want to jump into something, you can click one of those. But over the last couple of weeks, I've been saving a layout called Jamie Study Bible. So I'm going to click on this. This will open up my Study Bible layout. You'll notice I've got my Bible over here. I've got my target Bible. So if I want to click on a hyperlink, this says Exodus 3:14. I can click on it. It jumps over in the hyperlinked Bible over there. You see the study Bible, and then you see my notes file here. Okay, so 3 contexts: historical context, literary context, and social context. With historical context, we're going to look at Jeremiah 29. This is a very famous passage in Jeremiah 20. Declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. And we can actually misinterpret that passage if we don't understand the historical context behind it. You could actually read that passage and think to yourself, if I follow Jesus and I follow the Lord, everything is going to go well for me. There's going to be nothing evil because he has future and hope. Everything is bright and sunny. There's no problems coming my way. You can actually misinterpret this passage because you're saying, no, that's what the Bible says. God knows that he has the plans for us. He knows those plans. They're not for evil. It's going to give me a great future and a great hope. Now, the problem with that is, if you don't understand the historical context behind this passage, you might actually misinterpret what that passage is saying. So the historical context is Jeremiah is writing to the exiles, Jewish exiles in Babylon. They are currently in a hostile foreign land who is oppressing them. There's no good future. There's no good hope. In fact, there's been arguments between the prophets in Babylon. The Jewish prophets in Babylon are saying, no, 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 you're going to come back to Jerusalem really quick. This is going to be really quick. And Jeremiah is saying, nope, you're going to need to lock in, start having babies, build houses, plant gardens. He actually says it right in here, build houses, plant gardens, eat the produce. You're going to be in Babylon for a while, but take heart because God knows the plans he has for you. And a hope. And that colors and gives more vibrancy to the passage if you understand the historical context. So you may say, well, Jamie, how would I get to that historical context? Well, one of the best ways is the study Bible itself, Faith Life Study Bible. Remember, they have these grayed out sections. These are just summaries and bonus stuff that it's adding. And so anytime you see a grayed out section, I want to encourage you to read it. If you notice here is a little summary paragraph about Jeremiah 29, 1-32. You'll notice here that this passage records the contents of a letter that Jeremiah sent to the exiles, encouraging them to settle in for the long haul and to ignore the other prophets who preached a short exile and an imminent return home. So again, knowing the historical context behind a passage helps you not misinterpret what's going on. So first one, historical context. Study Bibles are going to help you with this. Also looking at Bible dictionaries, that will help you. Also, if you go to the beginning of a book and click on the introduction, these sidebar introductions in the study Bibles, this is going to help give you a lot of background information, historical information about what's happening, the structure of the book. We looked at this last time, outline, and then major themes. But just these little introductions will really be helpful to you to get a handle on the historical background and the historical context. All right, so that's the historical context. Second is literary context. I want to, commonly known as the love chapter. And I know you know this, but where is the most prominent place where you hear this verse or this chapter read? Do you know where that is? Weddings. Yep. I think every wedding I've been a part of, every wedding I've seen, wedding, assuming it was a Christian wedding, they read 1 Corinthians 13. And by the way, that's not a terrible thing. It's not terrible to do that. But if you understand the literary context, it actually changes your understanding of this chapter, of chapter 13. Because Paul has a literary, if you look at the literary context of 1 Corinthians, you'll understand that Paul is saying something here in chapter 13 that has nothing to do with marriage. So you may say, okay, Jamie, how am I going to get there? How am I going to understand the literary context? Well, let's go over to the fact book, this icon right here. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to drag it here. And I'm actually going to type in Corinth. I just want you to see before I press enter. If I start typing, Logos is going to start suggesting some things that I might want to do a fact book on. I could do a fact book on the city of Corinth. I could do a fact book on the Corinthians themselves. Here's some historical moments in the life of Corinth. Here's 2 Corinthians. I could do a fact book on the entire book of 2 Corinthians, 1 Corinthians. Some moments in the book of Acts where Paul is in Corinth. So I just want to encourage you, as you're typing in a fact book, just, don't hit enter too quickly. 1 Corinthians. This opens up a fact book entry on 1 Corinthians, gives me a little summary sentence here, gives me a Bible dictionary entry, and I want you to see the Lexham context commentary right here. I want you to click on that. Actually, I'm going to click it. I'm going to drag it right here. And I want you to see that this context commentary is doing something really helpful. This is where you're going to get a feel for the literary context of a passage. I'm going to click on the outline here in 1 Corinthians. And yeah, any passage that you study has a literary context. So if I just grab a passage and I start reading it, interpreting it, doing a bunch of stuff, but I don't understand the bigger literary scope, I'm going to misinterpret it. So here's an outline from the Lexham Context Commentary. It says, problems at Corinth. The first 6 chapters is Paul discussing the problems that were happening at that church. If I scroll down, then this what's great about this commentary is just doing a bunch of subdividing summary and context for each of these passages. It's really an amazing resource. Chapters 7 to 16, which is the second big section in this book, is Paul responding to the questions that the Corinthian church had asked him. So apparently they were asking questions about sexuality, marriage, and divorce. So he talks about it. Looks like they were asking questions about food being offered to idols. Down here, I guess there was some discussion about, there were questions about the resurrection. So he discusses that in chapter 15. And then he's going to close with some biographical information. He's trying to collect some money from them. He wants to come visit them and yada, yada there at the end. But I want you to see our passage is in the middle of this section, chapter 11 to 14, disorder in public worship. Now, instantly, I look at this and I go, okay, Paul is talking about disorder in public worship when he writes 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Do you see that? He talks about head coverings, Lord's Supper, basics about spiritual gifts, then the love chapter from chapter 13, then more direction about spiritual gifts. I just want you to see the flow. So chapter 13 has nothing to do with marriage in Paul's mind. When he wrote it, it has to do with disorder in public worship. mainly that people were using spiritual gifts, but they weren't using them in love. So they were actually abusing one another. And so he inserts chapter 13 to talk about what love looks like, what it feels like, so that when they're using spiritual gifts and they're using them in corporate worship, they're doing these gifts with love. So I just want you to see understanding the literary context of a passage is really, really important. And one of the best ways to do that would be the Lexham Context Commentary. Honestly, if you're studying a passage, it's great to read the entire book. I'd be reading all of First Corinthians. If I'm going to teach on First Corinthians 13, I would be reading the entire book all the way through just so that I understand the flow. So that's literary context. The third and final context that I want you to be thinking about. So we've talked about historical context and literary context. The third one is social context. I'm going to go to Luke chapter 10, verse 25. It's the parable of the Good Samaritan. Now, to give and to illustrate the importance of social context, let's say that I walk up to you and I write a note to you, or I write a text to you, and the text says, the Wolverines are going to go down to the shoe and they're going to eat up the Buckeyes. If that's all I wrote to you, because you live in the Cincinnati area in modern day, you would know automatically what I'm talking about because we share a social context. You would know automatically I'm talking about college football. I'm talking about the University of Michigan. They're the Wolverines. They're going to come down to the stadium in Columbus, Ohio, where Ohio State is founded. The stadium is called the Shoe. And Ohio State is called the Buckeyes. That's their mascot. But I don't have to share all that information. I don't have to give you all that background information because you and I share the same social context. So when I say the Wolverines are going to the shoe to eat up the Buckeyes, everybody knows what I'm talking about because we share the same social context. The problem is the Bible is written by people who don't share our same social context. It'd be like if I wrote that in the text and somebody 2,000 years from now on the other, if they didn't understand the social context behind that statement, they'd be totally confused. They'd think that there was some rabid infestation of wolverines, of these little animals that are like taking out and eating buckeyes and eating people's shoes and stuff. They'd be coming up with all kinds of weird interpretations of what I said because they don't share the same context. Well, this is one of the problems that happens when we study the Bible. If we don't understand the social background context, sometimes we will misinterpret and we won't understand what the passage is saying. And the example that I'm using here is the parable of the Good Samaritan. Now, for us, a Good Samaritan sounds like a hero. It sounds like a really positive person. But if you don't understand the social context of what Jesus is doing here, you actually miss out on what's going on. So I'm going to go over to the Faith Life Study Bible. And I'm going to scroll down to verse 33. Again, so you see this grade section right here. The study Bible is actually going to give me some background information. Jews and Samaritans despised each other. And for Jesus's audience, the idea of a good Samaritan would have been a contradiction. So this gives us some background, and I can actually read this entire section on Samaritans. This gives us the social context so that when we hear Jesus talking about the parable of the Good Samaritan, he's actually using a bad guy as the example of who you should be like. In modern day, it would be like if Jesus was walking around in modern day Israel, Hamas supporter from Gaza as the hero of the story to provoke. This parable is a really provocative parable. So I want you to see that if you understand the social context, it will help you in understanding the passage. So the Faith Life Study Bible will help you with this. Another resource that will help you with the social context is the IVP Biblical Backgrounds Commentary. There's a New Testament volume right here by Craig Keener. Then there's an Old Testament volume by John Walton. If I click on this, I'll open up, and this will give me this entire commentary. All it's doing is helping you with the background social context behind the passage. So I highly recommend that you check that out. So historical context, literary context, and then social context. One bonus thing, you may notice that, I'm going over here to the library and I'm trying to open up a book. If I know I've got a book that I'm going to use a lot, I can actually grab this book drag it over here. This is the shortcut menu. This whole space right here is called the shortcut menu. If I release that, it adds a little shortcut. So let's say I'm doing something else and I don't have I'm like, I want to look at the Bible background commentary. Oh, I've got a shortcut right here. Click on it, boom, it opens it, ready to go. And you could do this with the Faith Life Study Bible. You could do it with your journals. You could do it with a fact book if you wanted. You could get a Bible if you know, I always want to, I want to quickly look at the English Standard Version. Just grab it, drag it right here. Now I've got a shortcut. So it's historical context, literary context, and social context. Faith Life Study Bible is going to help you with a lot of it. Lexham Context Commentary will help you with the literary work. And then the Bible Background Commentary, in addition to the Study Bible, will help you with that social context. Okay, a couple things, other things I want to show you. Let's say I've got a Bible opened. In your homework, you're actually going to work on looking at multiple translations of the passage that you're studying. If you look right here, there's a parallel book set link, or an icon, I should say. If I click on this, this will offer to me other Bibles that I could look at. So if I'm looking at the ESV, but let's say I just want to read this in a different translation. Let's say I want to read it in the New Living Translation. I can click on it, and now it just flips right to the New Living Translation, keeps the link set ready to go. And now I can read in this translation. I can press back, go back to ESV. I could choose a different one if I want. Let's see what Lexham English Bible has to say. I could read that translation. That's really helpful. If you wanted to not flip back and forth, you can actually go to the shish kebab menu right here. And actually, nope, don't do shish kebab. Highlight verses 25 to 28, release that highlight, and then you see this little small menu. This is the text comparison tool. If I click on this, it will open up the text comparison. This shows me all my 5 top Bibles, and I can read them, boom, handle the text. I also play around with the visuals on it. It shows me the difference based off of the standard text that I'm using is the ESV. And this shows me the differences to the ESV. I can also use the strikeout. It'll keep the ESV written and then strike out the original text of the ESV and add the other translations. So really helpful. If I want to change the actual Bibles I'm using, I can change them here. Really good text comparison tool. So you're going to use that in your homework. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. That will help you. I've shown you shortcuts. Oh, final thing that I want to show you is you're actually going to create a reading plan in your homework. And I want to show you how to do that. We're going to do a reading plan of Psalm 119, which is the longest chapter in the Bible. And let's say that I wanted to create a plan where I'm going to read Psalm 119 over a 7-day period. Over an entire week, I want to read Psalm 119. To do this, I'm going to open up Psalm 119. I'm going to go to the shish kebabs. I'm going to click on it. And I'm going to go to Start Reading Plan. I'm going to click on it. This opens up a menu here where I can rename this. I'm going to do 7-day Psalm 119. So I've named this reading plan. Right now, it's giving me some hyperlinks, so I'm going to change these. This says all passages. I don't want to read all passages. I want to just read. I can change the Bible version that I want to read it in. I'm going to keep it English Standard, but I could change this to New King James or any other version. I am going to read this every day. If I wanted to read it every other day or weekdays or pick days, I could do that. I'm going to leave it on every day, starting today. And I'm going to click on, I don't want to read this over a year. I'm going to read this in 1 week. So I'm just going to change the field to 1 week. So what I'm doing is I'm reading Psalm 119 in the English Standard Version every day, starting today and finishing in 1 week. I'm going to click Start. And what this has done is it has created a reading plan with daily readings for a week. So if I click on it, this gives me the reading plan. So I can actually literally read through. And then when I get to the end, oh, that's what I'm supposed to read for today. I can click Mark Done. And tomorrow I can come and read the next section. Same way, I read through, and I can mark Done. And I'll just keep going through the reading plan. Now you may say, well, Jamie, how do I find this reading plan? How do I get to this thing? Well, 1, you could save it in your layout if you wanted. 2, you could actually grab the reading plan and you could make it a shortcut. That's one option. So now you've got that reading plan. Also, just as a fun tip, anytime you create a reading plan like that, if you go back to your dashboard, it's going to create a little card right here. So when you open up Logos tomorrow or later today, you actually have this card. You could click on it and open right to that. Walkthrough for week 3. Another piece of homework is you're going to look at the dictionary of biblical imagery. So to get that, biblical imagery, here it is. And for homework, I'm asking you to actually read the preface, the section, and the introduction. Love this resource. Really, it's one of my favorites. I love utilizing this resource all the time. Dictionary of Biblical Imagery. So you're going to look at that, and then you're also going to do some basic Bible study of doing a historical context, literary context, and then observation of Acts, a couple passages in Acts. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. Love you guys, and I will see you next week. Bye.